Hello, and welcome to Preparation Avengers, a weekly podcast with up-to-date impressions on every film in the MCU leading up to Infinity War on April 27th. I'm your host slash moderator, Thomas Rogers, and joining me this week, Danny DKP Kilpatrick.
Good afternoon, boys.
Paul Pebby Burns.
Yo.
And Alexander I Hernandez.
I have famously huge turds.
Alejandro.
Yep. I've hung out with Idify. He does have famously
I believe that he has
huge
famously
turds.
huge turds.
Actually, I don't actually know that. I'm just being silly. This week, we are reviewing, if you couldn't tell by our turds conversation, Guardians of the Galaxy 2! Volume 2, specifically.
Ooh, ooh.
Let's go over a few facts. Number one, it was released April 5th, 2017. What's today? Today is April 7th, 2018. So
That's crazy.
Almost the 1 year anniversary.
if you're listening to this, you're probably not listening to this on April 7th, 2018. You're probably listening to it significantly later than that, but time capsule for
Don't
you.
break the fourth wall.
I'm breaking walls, baby. Breaking down walls. It had a budget of $200 million compared to Guardians of the Galaxy's $232 million. So, yeah, this had a smaller budget than Guardians of the Galaxy.
That's bizarre considering how
weird.
successful the first one was.
Yeah.
So, I think it's because a lot of it's done. You have a lot of the, like, ideas for costumes. You have a lot of the people that you would have to pay, or a lot of the, like, costume designers and stuff.
But at the same time, you got in this one, you got
Sly.
you got Sly, you got
Kurt Russell.
Hasselhoff.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some expense put into this movie.
For sure. Yeah, it is a little strange.
I'm
that
sure
it's,
David Hasselhoff is very expensive to get these days.
That's exactly
You're
what I
right.
was gonna say.
You gotta buy that guy cheeseburgers. It's crazy.
Oh my god, that fucking video of him on the floor eating that cheeseburger. I just remember him being like, such a mess. And then picking it out and throwing the
I
lettuce
have
on the
no idea
floor.
what you're talking about.
There's a video, that came
of
out
him.
of his daughter filming him, basically to out him as like having an alcohol addiction.
Oh,
And it's him on the floor, like, with the shirt off, eating a cheeseburger. And he's just like, such a mess. And like throwing the lettuce and shit out of it. It's one of the funniest videos I've ever seen.
I actually recommend it.
Yeah,
It's
I highly
the
recommend
realest
it.
video ever.
And it's great to you can say it now because apparently he's cured,
Mhm.
or he's
Clean.
he's tackled it. So now it's just funny and not sad. He's getting work again. We know
Yeah,
that.
we just saw him in Guardians 2.
Yeah, it's true.
Maybe he'll dude. What if he's the next Iron Man? He's like, Robert Downey Jr. did it. I could do it.
It's Shuri.
Shut up. No, it better not be.
He'll be the next Captain America.
As far as box office return, it had a return of $863.8 million, and that's compared to Guardians of the Galaxy's $773 million. So it did about $100 million more.
Huh.
Nice.
Yeah, also a little bit surprising.
Yeah, me too.
I would have thought that Guardians,
Did
like,
better.
granted, I think,
People didn't know who Guardians.
yeah, exactly.
Guardians
People,
were.
but
The first movie was like highly successful. Everyone likes the.
I liked the
characters,
first one so much that I went and saw it multiple
Me
times,
too.
whereas the second one, I didn't have that desire.
The only comic book we've ever done that with was Watchmen.
I need to watch that again.
I mean,
I saw a thing on Reddit about how it holds
I've
up.
read the graphic novel and I've seen like it's a great adaptation. I don't know why people shit on it so
So
much.
it
They
is
changed
a
the
really
ending,
good
and I
adaptation.
understand that.
If you're
but
gonna do it, I actually recommend the super long director's
The
cut.
director's
Yeah, I've
cut,
never
yep.
seen that one.
It's got animation interspliced in it, and it's really good.
Welcome to Preparation Watchmen. So it was directed and written by James Gunn. I want to comment on the fact that it was written by James Gunn, which the first one was as well. But if you look back at the history of Preparation Avengers and you look back at the history of a lot of these Marvel movies, and even moving forward, they are written by a fuckload of people.
Yeah.
To where it's like someone writes the story, and then maybe the Marvel doesn't like the screenplay, so they get a screenplay writer to write like all the dialogue, and then they're not super happy with that, so they get another person to write more dialogue, and then by the time you get to their IMDb page, it's fucking 7 people.
And then they hire Paul Rudd, and he says, "I got to rewrite my dialogue. This is
Yeah.
no good." And
Yeah.
he's got a writer credit, and it just it expands.
The amount of writer credits are usually very large on these movies, but
this
for
one
this
didn't.
one, it is James Gunn.
well, because it's like and this is the thing that this is the reason why specifically, even if this one, which we'll get to, I know isn't the most popular among everyone sitting here or remoting in. it feels different enough to where it doesn't feel like a committee wrote it. You know what I mean? And that's why, like, I really enjoyed this movie. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to all that. And we'll get to why I disagree with that.
No, that's completely fair.
I also disagree, but we'll get there.
I think a committee could have done a little something. But I do appreciate Marvel and Kevin Feige's confidence in James Gunn.
Every time I hear Kevin Feige, I talked about this the other night, I think of the fucking dickhead that did the new Ghostbusters.
Paul Feig.
Yes.
But they're not. They're
He
not
wrote,
shit.
He wrote the new Ghostbusters. He also wrote, like...
he did Bridesmaids, which I've never seen.
yeah.
I heard it's good, but I despise just Melissa McCarthy, so I can't do it.
So I can't. We're talking James Gunn here, and like,
Well, I'm talking Kevin Feige, apparently, or was it Paul Feige?
No, he's bringing us back in. He's
I know,
roping us back in.
I'm roping us back in. So Peter Gunn is. I tell you, I have such mixed feelings because I loved Guardians so much, and this one I feel so differently about. But I'll tell you what I don't feel conflicted about, and that's his brother. I thought his brother did a great job.
Yeah, he gave his brother a lot more
actual roles, and I thought
he was gonna say he wasn't conflicted with Ghostbusters.
No,
That's
I don't think anybody's. Well,
I was
somebody
just
might be conflicted
changing the
with it.
topic, but we can go back to it if you like.
Just to kind of go over a couple of credits, it's the same sort of things he's did previously. He did Slither, Super. He had like one of the scenes in movie 43, which is an awful movie, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy. And a couple of things he's written. He wrote 13 Ghosts, Lollipop Chainsaw the Game, the Dawn of the Dead remake, Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo?
Wait,
Yeah.
he wrote the Dawn of the Dead remake?
He did.
The Zack Snyder one, right?
Yep.
Oh, probably one of the best remakes ever.
I agree. A very good remake. Let's get to the cast. We have Chris Pratt returning as Peter Quill.
Continuing to be a god of physical manifestation.
Oh yeah, he looks great. That scene where he's like putting a shirt on or whatever, putting that
Which
silly
was
shirt
clearly just so that Chris Pratt could put his shirt on.
Well,
That's the whole
they had that
purpose of
scene in the first movie, too. He's getting sanitized or
on.
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, they do that in they do, in Captain America, whenever Peggy Carter's like touching his pecs,
That's right.
his pectoral muscles.
His man tits.
Yep. Zoe Saldana returns as Gamora. And I'm having a hard time bringing up these characters without wanting to dive, because we usually like talk about the characters.
Just get through it.
But
I have a lot to
I have
say
a hard time
about...
talking about the characters
I
without
really
talking
wanna
about
hear
my
DKP's
problems with the
recap.
movie. Oh, we'll get there.
Oh,
It'll
you
probably
certainly
be
will.
the most effort he's put into one of these.
I haven't even thought about it till after I brought it up. So
We'll see.
Start recapping in your head. Go!
Dave Bautista returns as Drax. Vin Diesel returns as Groot, but he's Baby Groot in this one. Bradley Cooper, Rocket. Michael Rooker as Yondu Udonta. Karen Gillan returns as Nebula. First of our new actors, Pom Klementieff plays Mantis. I like Mantis. As far as things that I enjoy about this movie, Mantis is in the top echelon of those things.
Dr. Mantis Toboggan.
Kurt Russell plays Ego, aka Peter Quill's pops.
I have a lot to say about this.
Sylvester Stallone plays Takar Ogord.
Did you just roll your fucking R's saying,
He
or
did.
roll your
He
L's?
said
If I did, it was
Stallone.
If I did, it was accidental.
Sylvester Stallone.
If I did, it was an
Stallone.
accidental.
Stallone.
Laura Haddock returns as Meredith Quill. Elizabeth Debicki plays Aisha, one of the gold people,
Okay.
the queen of the gold people. Chris Sullivan plays Taserface.
All right.
Yeah, lots more problems associated with Taserface. Tommy Flanagan plays Tulk. The reason I bring Tommy Flanagan up, he was in Sons of Anarchy.
baby.
Yeah.
Which one was Tulk?
He's the one that we see that gets sucked out of the ship, where his face gets all flamed up.
Okay, yeah. We've seen him in previous in Guardians 1, I think.
I don't
I believe
recall
so.
crediting him, but
You might not have credited him, but
and then of course Sean Gunn plays Kraglin
Yep.
and the onset Rocket. So yeah, he's Rocket Raccoon. There are a lot more people in this movie, like a lot more, but I just stopped crediting people Spider-Man: Homecoming has the same issue. Whenever we talk to that, there are so many people credited.
Well, I think
in
the
that movie.
MCU at this point has become a people have used it as a leaping off point. So I think everybody wants to get and
Yeah.
like when I saw Sylvester Stallone walking onto that screen, I didn't expect him coming into this movie.
Yeah.
When he walked onto that screen, I went, "Oh, I guess these movies have gotten to that point, and we're just going to start seeing them."
Before we get into anything, I just gotta say, one of the bigger disappointments: no Tango and Cash reunion.
That's true. Having
Yeah.
both of those two actors in the scene together.
That's true.
would've been
We did
awesome.
not. That would have been awesome.
I personally thought Tango and Cash was over. I thought Stop or My Mom Will Shoot with Sylvester Stallone the best like buddy cop movie.
I know you're joking, but like I'm seriously offended that you're not.
I
talking
don't
about
think
Rocky.
he is joking.
I'm
No,
sorry.
I said buddy cop movie, not best
I'm
movie.
sorry. Demolition Man, hands down, best Sylvester Stallone.
Okay,
performance.
I haven't seen that in a long time. That was another one that popped up.
Demolition
recently.
Man. I watched
should
it
watch that.
last year, which is pretty recently for
No,
having
that's
seen
recent.
Demolition Man.
No, it's true.
It's fucking
It
great.
holds
It
up.
still holds
Yeah,
up
it really
entirely.
does.
That's pretty much it for the cast. So DKP, take it away with the plot.
Yeah.
So this movie is a coming of age story. You see. All right. So this movie is about. What is it about? I don't know. The Guardians are fucking around and they steal some batteries. Because they need something to make the people chase them. Then a dude basically riding like a tailless sperm shows up and is like saves them. And they crash land. And for whatever reason, well, first off, let me get to the guy. The little sperm guy floats down. He's like, "Peter, I'm your dad," and it's Kurt Russell, and everyone's excited. And he's like, "Come with me," and everyone's like, "I don't know about this. He did just save us," but we're rightfully skeptical to some degree. You get a lot of talk about Drax's nipples, which is top tier. So then, for whatever reason, he's like, "Okay, well, I need someone to stay here while I go bring you." Because I can't just get you a new ship, even though like I can manifest plans, or I can't bring this in with me. So for whatever fucking reason, there needs to be a reason to split up the cast. So he leaves, right? They go back. Some shit happens with the Ravagers and Gold People. Fuck. I don't know. It turns out Kurt Russell's a planet, and then but then it turns out that Peter Quill's half planet.
But you have missed the most important point in
What?
this entire thing. That Kurt Russell has fucked everyone in the universe.
Oh yeah, he's been just like banging, spreading his seed throughout the galaxy, as Kurt Russell would probably do if he had the chair.
As he probably should.
After that, it turns out he's a bad planet, which that sucks. Then they kill the bad planet, and then that's it.
Yep, that's it.
That's pretty
That's
much
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Hopefully I
Worst
met your
recap
expectations,
ever.
Tommy.
it. Well, but see, here's the thing: is that I would have recapped this in exactly the same way, but we have completely different opinions. So, can we talk about what we think of this movie?
Yeah, let's review this movie. Paul, start us off.
All right.
Zoe Saldana's is super fucking fine, by the way.
Zoe Saldana is
I can never remember her name, but she is so fucking fine.
Gamora.
Yes.
Oh yeah, fuck.
Especially
So-
as Gamora.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Man, that red hair too. Shit.
So I went into this movie, and when I saw it the first time, I was like, I enjoyed the hamburger I had while I watched this movie, is sort of my feeling about it. And I came back and I said, I'm going to give this movie another chance. I've been seeing all these other Marvel Universe movies, and I want to try it out. I'm going to have an open mind. Let's see what's good about this movie. And I tried, and I got as far as Kurt Russell in a fucking convertible, and I was done.
So why does that part offend you? Kurt Russell in a convertible.
Wait, that's
So-
the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I
after the
literally
beginning
got-
of the movie, you were done?
I was done. I hated this movie. I despise this movie. And the reason that I despise this movie is for the same reason that I despise Iron Man 3. It's that all of the things that happen in this movie are things that I wanted to see stories about, and they were handled in a way that was so uninteresting to me, and so just like run-of-the-mill movie quality storytelling, that I was profoundly disappointed that we can't go back and retell. We have to reboot this franchise to fix how uninteresting this movie was in telling a story.
Can
that
you hit
I
us
wanted
with
to
some
know.
specifics?
I'm confident that 3 is going to bring it home for us, but we're not talking about 3.
So the specific about it. So I gotta say, so I have a bias. I'm not a big fan. You got to handle lost father movies really well for me. That's important to me. It's an important story that I think needs to be told in a good way. So that's an important story. I wanted to hear about Ego, and the way that this story was told was entirely through exposition by Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell literally tells you the story, and then this happened, and then this happened. Here's a diorama of me telling the story, and then this happened, and then this happened. You don't actually get to see anything that happens in this movie until the end, in which case it's a giant, impossible to follow CGI orgasmic festival of just lights and colors that have absolutely no meaning whatsoever, and then the planet just sort of blows up. And it was so painfully uninteresting to me. And then you add to it, I'm sorry, I can go on about this for a while. You add to it fucking Nebula and Gamora, who I so love these actresses, and I wanted very much to hear. And the story they even told is like, oh, so interesting. Like, how messed up it would make you to have your father sort of pitch you like pit fighters against each other, and to replace your body. That there's so much like body dysmorphia stuff they could do, and so much like
yeah, let's tackle that, please.
Talking about their feelings that we could do, and none of that happened. Literally, the entire character development was, I'm going to punch you, and then one time I'm going to catch you when you're falling, and then I'm going to start punching you again. That was the extent of their conversation and development.
So I don't agree with everything you just said, but I'll give you it. I still don't think that the Gamora bald Nebula, right?
Nebula.
I still think
Exactly.
that Nebula is still to me an extremely fucking uninteresting character.
Which is super unfortunate, because if I were to describe her story is one of the most interesting.
We're
And
not
her
talking
character-
about the comic books, though.
No,
I don't know anything about Nebula in the comic books.
In this movie,
I don't know a damn
Oh,
thing
you're
about
just saying
Nebula.
like okay.
If I was just to tell you about Nebula, who she was in the grand scheme of the MCU, she is one of the most interesting characters, but not in the MCU.
She
is
sounds
she
that
not.
way.
That's what I'm
but
saying. That's what I'm saying.
But
She
she's
sounds
not.
that way, but she's not. And
she
she's
wasn't
not
in the
because
first
she
one,
wasn't,
and she wasn't in this.
because she
one.
wasn't executed. It wasn't executed well.
That's exactly it.
Like, just the idea of like Thanos, how important he has been over the last 10 movies.
I don't even necessarily think. Okay, think about it this way: if you put her in any other Marvel movie, she wouldn't stick out as a fucking negative point. Because like if she was a villain in any other Marvel movie, it would be run of the mill. Yep, this is about right for a Marvel villain for the most part. The fact is, every other character in this fucking in the Guardians movies is fun and colorful and interesting. She seems boring as fuck and out of place in this one.
I don't know if you're going to like what I'm about to say or hate what I'm about to say, but she reminds me a lot of Bucky Barnes of the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Where she has this...
I'm conflicted about it. I don't know.
she has this very interesting quality in terms of like who she is, what her upbringing was about, what her life was about, how she became the person that she is today. But the story that they tell for her as a character and the way that her character interacts with everybody is not handled well. And it's just like I understand her motivations, but her motivations don't like make her as interesting as her motivations actually are.
And I think that problem translates across this whole movie for me.
No, 100%.
And so each of the characters, this is a flaw in their development. It's a thing that keeps me from enjoying their development. And for me, it all culminates in the Fast and the Furious-ization of Guardians of the Galaxy. This is Two Guardians, Too Furious. It is all about, but we're up, friends. We're family. And it is so poorly handled and so heavy-handed and so like you gotta there's a subtlety to making a group of people feel like family that we got in the last movie. In that scene, in the Guardians
The We
1,
Are Groot scene. I know which part you're talking about.
even or the scene where Drax shoots Nebula and where he's insulting Gamora and he says, "You and even this slut over
green
here,
whore.
this green whore," and and Nebula comes in and goes, "You fucking bitch," and blah blah blah, and he shoots her and he goes, "You don't talk about my friends that way." That was the subtlety that this movie completely lacked. This movie was like, okay, now it's time for us to have the "we're all a family" scene. Everybody come together and somebody say we're a family. All right, now next scene. And it was just, it was painful to me. Because I wanted them to be a family. I wanted to care.
I want to hear from you on this.
I have to respectfully disagree. Everything that Peb hated is what I loved.
Even the Nebula stuff?
That was probably the weaker of the stories, but you got way... I mean, if you had to compare Nebula in the first movie to this one, she is a way better character in this one.
Well, that's true, but...
All their stories have kind of come to a standstill in this one. They were established as a family in the first one, or becoming a family. And then this movie is like, what happens when the chains of this family start to rust and start to break, which you get in Rocket. And then it's the whole dynamic between them all figuring out, do we want to stay together or do we want to split up? And you got that with Star-Lord and his father. While the father is probably my biggest problem with the movie, but the parallel,
Kurt Russell, right?
Yes. The problem with the parallel, the parallel with that is it's Star-Lord coming to grips with, he wants to really be with his real father and understand, but when he finally comes to his end conclusion, he realizes he already had a family and it's worth preserving. Same thing with the rest of them in this whole movie. Even with him in Yondu, which fantastic fucking performance by Michael Rooker.
Yeah,
incredible.
I have to completely agree there.
Michael Rooker?
Yeah.
Michael Rooker's fucking solid as shit, man.
Yondu is the one redeeming point in this movie.
It's insane watching this movie, and I just keep thinking,
but that's the best part of... But you needed the Kurt Russell failure for the Michael Rooker to be so positive. By him failing in every aspect, Michael Rooker shined that much more. By him, even from the first movie, saying that he captured him because he could small and sneak into places. And then you realize the motivation on this one and why he did it. Fantastic.
Yeah, I actually have to agree with Adify on that. Like the realization as far as like all that really did work for me. I know, like you said, that you have to be kind of careful the way you tell it. I have a similar real life experience to that that you do to some degree.
Yeah.
But like this one, like it resonated very deeply with me.
It worked for you.
Yes, it did, absolutely. As far as like Michael Rooker being like, well, it was kind of only at the end could he finally just be like, all right, look.
He may be your father, but I'm your daddy.
Yeah, where it's like okay, here's an example, right? It's like my dad hasn't really been in the picture, whatever, and I've had this rocky kind of relationship with my stepdad, who I've known for basically forever.
Yeah,
and it's only until I've kind of become like almost fucking like 30 years old that it's like, nah, that guy's kind of more closer to my dad. Like, but we've never said it before. You know what I mean? It's always been that silent respect that we have for one another. I think I've told him like, hey man, look, I love you, like one time. And back and forth on that, but it's always just been kind of known that we, you know what I mean. Oh, yeah. So I don't know, that worked really well for me.
So I gotta say, I had a very similar.
Real quick.
Oh yeah,
I think the same stance that DKP's coming with personally is, while it's not the similar circumstances, it's very similar to me. So getting this family aspect of it really hit home.
So I agree with both of you in that aspect of it. So that part of the story, that's the important part of the story to me, is who is your father is a question that you need to ask based on what your experience of your life is. And most people resent the person who took the role of father. Now, sometimes that's a stepfather, and sometimes that's your actual father.
Hard-ass job to have,
It's a hard-ass job to have, right.
It's thankless for a long time. Yeah.
And so... to have them tell the story of, hey, maybe your biological dad isn't the person who played the role of father, and that maybe you should be given some credit to your Yondu in your life, right? I think is a super important story. And I felt like Michael Rooker, that's his name, right?
Michael Rooker.
Rooker. I felt like he nailed that. He had that subtlety down, but the rest of the movie was just so, I don't know. It was just, maybe it's just me, but it was inelegantly handled. Like I wanted to really hate Kurt Russell, and he was too cartoonish for me to hate.
See,
he was just.
I wanted to like Kurt Russell because he's Kurt Russell and he has a certain charisma to him, and I didn't like him. And like, so we talk about when villains have that switch where they flip from being good guys to bad guys. That switch was very like. Number one, obviously it was super expected. We expected that to come, but it wasn't. The word that you used, and I think
subtle, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's the word that is going to constantly come to mind with my issues with this movie. Is like it wasn't subtle.
No,
even liking him,
I don't think it was necessarily unsubtle either. Because the way that part plays out, right? And I have a good comparison. I think that I thought of this time that made me understand a little bit more. Granted, when I first watched this in theaters, this is one of the only films that I've ever been to and got drunk while watching, like on purpose. I normally don't order booze when I go see movies, but I was like, I'm watching. You would look at me like that.
I've been to movies with you. You always order booze when you're watching a movie. Always. I've never been to a movie with you.
That's because I went with you and Festus. But no, because it makes me have to go take a piss, and I don't like to do that in movies. But for this one, I was like, I got 7 beers and a big bucket, and I was like, I'm watching Guardians. I'm gonna get drunk and do this. And so basically, rewatching it was kind of like watching it again for the first time a little bit. So I wasn't taking bathroom breaks, I was pausing it. But anyways, my point is, it was almost like a Dr. Manhattan sort of thing, to where like by the time he even reaches to Peter, doesn't see life the way that anyone else does, if he ever even did. But he has to put on like the sort of, when he first meets him, he's acting like nice and all this. He had to appeal to him, so he does that. But the moment he realizes that he has the potential, he basically starts losing the facade that he has, just because of the excitement that he has, that after eons of basically trying to find someone who can do that, it makes him slip up. And that's why I think he expects Peter to get it once he like basically shows him the cosmos or whatever. But only reason why he slips up about because had he waited like 1,000 years to tell him about his mom, probably been fine. Because Peter would have probably been so far gone, and being able to see things as a celestial, as Dr. Manhattan does, which is like outside of humanity, that it probably would have been fine. But I think just his excitement for finally being able to fucking do it after, 1 million failures, made him slip up and basically out of the one thing.
I can give you that. I didn't
That was at least my reading of it.
And I feel it, and like I said, I got where they were going with it, and I appreciate the story. I just thought it was executed poorly. I didn't like him very much before. I disliked him from the point he was riding in that...
Look like a sperm without a tail.
No, from the point he was riding in that convertible. I disliked him in his relationship with his mom.
Boggles my fucking mind how you have a problem with that part.
Oh,
just if you could just lay it out for me, what part of that rubs you the wrong way?
He just wasn't great, because I love Kurt Russell, and I've seen him in things, and I've
man,
like fucking Snake Plissken.
I have a painting of Snake Plissken in my living room.
I'm telling you, he is charismatic, but like from the beginning, he just did not. I did not like him. I didn't understand. I couldn't relate to him. I feel like if he had been I think that if you put him in the role of being Peter Quill's father, and I think that I think that the more interesting story would have been one in which Peter Quill felt conflicted. And there was no point at which Peter Quill felt conflicted. He was all about his dad when his dad was being amazing. And then his dad says, oh, I killed your mom, and just because I'm spiteful, I'm going to destroy your Walkman. And then Peter Quill says, well, now I've got to fight you.
The moment he tells him he put the tumor in his mom, he fills him full of holes.
I fucking loved that.
Like a half a second later.
I thought that part for me was one of the highlights of the fucking movie. How it was almost like a Han Solo bit where there was no hesitation it just immediately hit him, and it's like you know that part where you're always like, why don't just shoot him already? What are you doing?
I think that's fine.
Why are you?
I did
Why
actually
is the
find that very
character
satisfying.
delaying? But the fact that he immediately just pulled out his guns and shot him, I fucking thought was excellent.
But there wasn't, like Pet
I
said,
get
there
what
wasn't
you
a
mean,
build-up of
and I-
conflict.
It
Have you
says a
thought
lot
about
about
that?
his character too, though.
Yeah, no, I'm all about that. In fact, that's a Serenity. That's a Malcolm Reynolds moment, right?
Yeah.
In Firefly, there's a character who basically he hardly ever shoots his gun, but when he does, it's when you least expect it, and he just literally just kills the guy, and you move on. And that's what this sort of felt like. It was very satisfying.
In most movies, there would be the part where he goes, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then he goes, "Yes, Peter," but
but
what you're
there
getting
should
at,
have
what you're
been-
getting at, is where he's conflicted about
Do
I join this because I do see the higher purpose in it,
and because I love my dad. Because I'm telling you, kids will go a million miles for their biological dad, independent of how evil or unhealthy for them that their dad is. And I thought that this movie had an opportunity to talk about that, and it didn't.
Well,
this dad was just evil.
I have to
Or
disagree.
boring.
I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't done very well, but there was a conflict in him from the beginning. When Ego saves them after from being destroyed by the gold people, he has the debate of whether he should go with his dad or not. And
you do get
Gamora
that,
pretty
like-
much flat out tells him, no, go. This is the guy that's your David Hasselhoff. See if he lives up to it.
Well,
and then
you do get. Sorry, go on.
And then when he finally comes to that realization is pretty much when he says, I killed your mother. And then he's like, whoa,
it's a different-
fucking David Hasselhoff wouldn't do that. I mean, he might, but you know.
It's a different type of conflict, though. It's a different type of internal conflict. The conflict that you're talking about is this guy who just left me, this guy who abandoned me.
No, I thought that
versus-
part was done decently well too, because it's like you want something so much like that, but when you get it, then you get the resentment of like, well, why the fuck did you leave? So he was conflicted there. But I see your point as far as the lack of conflict with realizing what he's a part of. Like, it's about to be galactic domination or destruction, right? And not having the conflict of like whether to do it or not.
Is this who I am? Because this is who my father is. These are questions that I would have liked.
I will concede to you on that. I didn't think about that. That would have been good to have. Luckily, that didn't take away.
But so
there were a lot of parts there were more parts
mean,
that worked for me than that part not being there. But yeah,
so that part was frustrating to me. But I think that it's indicative of other parts in the plot, like the Ravagers. When the Ravagers mutiny and they just start spacing people, I felt so conflicted about this whole thing. And then Yondu basically kills everybody.
He murders every single one of them.
He murders every single person on that fucking
Again,
ship.
lacking subtlety.
That is exactly it. And so while I enjoyed the battle, the fight, and him using the arrow was all very satisfying, and it made the arrow breaking at the end.
What I think about when you say that is like, it's the comparison you made about Fast and Furious, where it's like there are there's what's and hows of the way that a lot of these things work.
Yes.
And the idea of like, hey, we need to break out, we need to do X, Y, and Z. That's like one way that you can tackle a similar thing. But this idea that it's like we are going to mass murder everybody, whether that individual Ravager has any form of conflict or not. Well, there are clearly like some that are a little bit iffy about it, and there's some that are chaotic, and they have a whole pirate
This is weird
appeal.
because I never thought I'd say this about a Guardians action scene, but I guess it's a matter of interpretation. So when you said it's pirate, very like swashbuckling, the Ravagers, that was my immediate thought as to why he's massacring fucking everybody. With the exception of the people who helped him escape, everyone else is complicit. And he might be Peter Quill's dad, so he gets slack there. But it's a father-son weird relationship.
It's kind of fun hearing you and I defend. After I spent so many of these movies having to defend myself, it's nice hearing some other people defending themselves.
What I interpreted that scene was he didn't care about the crew, because first off, everybody that did. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no,
no, please,
no, go on. I think you might be.
As you're breaking up from time to time, so it's hard for me to interject when you guys are talking. But I interpreted that whole scene as he didn't care about that crew anymore.
Right.
Because everybody that he did care about was gone, minus the one dude that was conflicted.
Plus,
so
it's like he's a Ravager first and foremost.
The best scene in the movie.
Pirate.
He's just slicing through everybody in that whole ship.
But at the same time,
to bring it, hold on, but to bring it back to the theme of the movie, that isn't Yondu's family.
no, and that's sort of my point, is that there wasn't any subtlety to it. So when the Ravagers decided to just space everybody they didn't like, then that was too extreme. And when Yondu decided to just kill everybody, that was too extreme. Like there's no gray in this movie at all.
I disagree with, like, if that was anyone else, I'd probably concede to your point and agree with you, or even like just see it. But like from the beginning, even from the first movie, these guys are like followers to an umpteen. They're not really written. I don't think they're supposed to be. They're all just weak-minded people who want to go looting and polluting,
right.
like
the
Captain Planet thing. So the fact that they're just willing to space people like makes complete sense to me, especially because they're space pirates. And now, hold on, that doesn't mean, well, it makes sense that they're space pirates or space pirates.
I would
But
give
not
you
only that,
that,
they've also been wanting to eat Peter Quill since he was a child, so they aren't good people.
Some of them, not Yondu,
I will give you
yeah.
that they're not good people, but they are a family that turned on itself, and the fact that it turned on itself without any preparatory work towards it, without any if Taserface, oh my god, I hate saying that word. If Taserface,
I thought that joke was a little played out in the movie.
So played out.
As cheesy as it was, I loved it.
Massive amounts
I will
of
say
subtlety missed.
The one part that okay, you know what? There are some things, like I would have removed a couple of things in this movie that would have made it better. The part where he calls the gold lady and is like, Taserface, and just her face goes, and she makes that noise.
That was hilarious.
That was hilarious. But then when she starts laughing afterwards, it's like, okay, had she just done like the cracking up but not said anything, that would have made that joke land way more. And there's a lot of moments like that in this movie. If that's what you're referring to on some of the parts.
No. What I'm saying is, if Taserface was charismatic and had spent time talking about how he had his crew and they didn't like Yondu and they were going to mutiny and blah, blah, blah. None of that happened. We got none of that. All we got is, I got a weird name and I'm going to kill everybody. And
Wait,
I'm sorry,
no,
but
you
that's
completely
just...
got it. You got it from the first scene you saw Yondu. After his interaction with Sylvester Stallone, Taserface makes a comment how he was fucking betrayed the Ravagers, that he's not fit to be leader. That was going through the whole theme of the Ravagers.
And as far as I know, there's a lot of movies that do that. Now, I can't speak to how historically relevant it is among pirates to whomever is the one that shoots and kills the captain.
I'm sorry,
and kind
but
of
if
starts the
you're
mutiny.
fucking stupid enough to follow Taserface, you deserve what you get.
Dude, they're
and that
all
makes it a
fucking- they're all stupid, though.
stupid story. That's my point, is that it wasn't an
But even in the first one, the Ravagers are seen as fucking like kind of
but the
bumbling
difference
idiots.
is that the Ravagers don't have entire storylines of the first movie about them. This movie has so many Ravager scenes that are fucking stupid, and the Ravagers are stupid. And check it out, they're in the forest and they're getting picked up and thrown around, and then they're getting killed by arrows, and then they're having a conversation. They're in this movie way too much.
Without having any sort of character development, without having any sort of, they're sort of.
See, I think they were tools for other characters.
They absolutely were.
Which I didn't offend me, because like the scenes in the forest worked. Like that was fun
though.
It was. And then you get 1,000 more scenes that include the Ravagers. And then, honestly, one of the more, like, I would say the best part of the whole Ravagers story is the very end of the movie whenever Yondu dies and he gets his awesome funeral. And then the Ravagers come and they do their fireworks scene. Like, as much as I dislike this movie, I like a lot of things about it. But I overall very much dislike this movie. That end scene where Kraglin is, like, so excited that the Ravagers are there to do a funeral for Yondu, I got emotional.
Me too.
I legitimately felt, and it's one of the most as far as being emotional in these movies, it's only happened a couple of other times, and this is one of the most emotional scenes in the entire MCU.
And that was the thing, is that those were people, whereas Taserface was not a person. He was a.
Yeah, where was the Ravager funeral for all those guys?
Yeah, exactly. They were stormtroopers. They were distractions from the plot. And not only that,
well, they went against the Ravager code, so there was no funeral.
They're bad guys, the golden people. I'm just sort of going through the
Golden people suck.
They just were.
I'll agree with
I
you.
like the
Awful.
Golden People.
Did you?
Yeah.
Except for I've watched Ready Player One recently, so the whole thing where they're not actually in their ships, but they're like guys. There's like a ton of like arcade machines set up, and they're all behind those, and it's making video game sounds. Having just watched Ready Player One, I hated that scene a little bit more this time, but that's Ready Player One's fault. It's not Guardians 2's
And
fault.
it's not because Ready Player One did it better.
Nope, it's not.
Yeah.
Although some of that stuff in Ready Player One's cool. Regardless, we're not talking about Ready Player One. I want to go back to something that you talked about earlier, which is like the jokes. Like this movie, you've said it before, how a lot of these movies are so long. And like I haven't felt it with a lot of them. This movie felt so long. And it was because it felt like there were too many scenes that they dragged a particular idea or scene on for way too long. As an example, the whole taser face thing.
Yep, I will agree with you 100% on that.
Also, the joke where Nebula, and I never noticed this the first 2 times I watched it, but this time, the joke where Nebula wants to eat one of those little plants.
Yeah,
They go back to that joke
it's
like
sour.
15 times, and then she takes a bite
like,
out of it.
Once again, had she taken the bite and just spit it out, and then not said it's not ripe, it would have worked in spades.
Yeah.
But they have to. There's a couple times where it feels like they have to explain it too much.
Yeah, the whole thing
Like,
where
people won't get the
Groot
joke.
has the bomb, and he's down there, and they're like, "Which button does he press? Did he press this button or this button?" Great joke that went on for so long that the joke stopped being great.
That's exactly
And even
it.
at the end of the
I
movie, when he
love
like
that
sticks
joke.
he sticks it again. The joke is great. It went on for too long, where he sticks it to the thing, and then he's standing there, and his fingers over it, and then right before he accidentally presses the wrong button, it pauses, and then it's like, "Oh, ow, I'm gonna hit the right button, guys, I got you." Did any viewer out there actually think he was gonna press the wrong button? There's just like, again, there's a massive lack of subtlety in this.
I mean, Groot died in the first one. It's
I want
possible.
to talk about some stuff real quick that I
Well,
haven't.
hold on. So we understand what Pevev's issue is with it. What is yours actually, Major Tom? Because I don't think we don't know yet.
Allow me the time, and I will absolutely discuss it. Number one, and it's something that I've talked about quite a bit, and I've used the word, I probably overused it, is the massive lack of subtlety. So one of my issues with Star Wars The Last Jedi is that they have these great characters that they established in the previous movie, and they have this amazing relationship together, and it's so fun to see them together. And then in The Last Jedi, they just take them all and put them in completely different areas, and they give them completely different sets of characters to focus on, where it's like Finn is going on an adventure to some casino planet with this
Can we not talk about this?
No, but
Because just don't give specifics, otherwise I'm gonna want to fucking talk about The Last Jedi.
well, guess
I hate
what?
it.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 does the exact same thing.
I'm
it does the exact
so
same thing.
sorry you feel that way.
It's not. I feel that way. These things actually happen.
No,
they
I mean,
send
no,
all
I mean,
the
like,
characters off.
That might be true. I'm so sorry that you had like the experience I had watching The Last Jedi, that you had to live through that a second time or even once.
Dude, like I adore The Force Awakens. I know it's not a super beloved movie. I'm not even that huge of a Star Wars fan, but I thought Force Awakens was super great. And the relationship between the 3 new main characters was super strong. And I feel the same way about Guardians of the Galaxy. All of the main characters, when they are all together, there's magic and there's charm, and they're funny together, and they do all of these amazing things. But when you split all of them up,
So first thing, let's split them up.
let's split them all up and let's give them all their own interesting stories. The problem is that their stories weren't that interesting. Where it's like, so what do we do with Rocket? Okay, well, everybody is going to shit on him this entire.
Well, that was something I said
movie.
in the summary of this movie, which was I kept thinking like, wait, why didn't they just bring the ship with them? Couldn't they work that out?
Yep, they could
So
have.
that way, like, you know, okay, and also like
they didn't all have to split up.
Gamora won't leave Nebula even for a second, won't feed her, but like, I'm gonna leave her here with Rocket Raccoon with the damaged ship. Like, that doesn't make sense either. I will agree. Like, there was, like I said, I don't like everything about this movie. There are some things that I was just like, what the fuck? Come on.
I do want to point one thing out that I thought was really cool. I love the way that Rocket fixed the ship with like a spray gun. So did you see that
Yeah,
scene?
that
You
was
just
awesome.
like
When they're
sprayed it
on
and the
Barrette
ship
or
just.
Barrette, whatever it's
I
called.
just thought that was a brilliantly cool bit.
Yeah. That was cool.
However, thought so. Here's the thing. I think that we just got done with phase 2, right? So we know that these people. I'm a monster. We know that the people who make these movies are fans of the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they did in Empire Strikes Back, which was brilliant and subtly handled, is they split up their cast. They took their cast from Star Wars and they cut them in half, and they had them go on separate adventures. And this was crazy, and it was stupid, and somehow they made it work. Well, I think that they're trying to capture lightning in a bottle. I think that people are going, oh, we're making the second movie. We got to split up the cast just like they did in
they all
Empire
have to have
Strikes
their own
Back.
stories, and they all have to be
blah, blah.
interesting.
Turns out they just did an amazing job on Empire Strikes Back, and that's a really hard thing to do, and you really have to develop each of those storylines and have its own weight, and they just didn't do that.
And if there was like I appreciated, if you think about like Rocket's arc throughout this movie, the opening scene, the scene when they're all fighting the big monster and he's stealing the batteries, all that's great. When they're all together, this movie is at its best. It is so very good. Like classic Guardians, very, very entertaining. But when it's like everybody is just constantly picking on Rocket, and everybody, he has like 60 different nicknames in this movie. Everybody's calling him Rats and Can I Pet Your Puppy? And like everybody is constantly being overwhelmingly rude to this character that
Trash
like
panda.
feels like for no reason. But the reason that they want to do it is because the story, the writer, James Gunn, he wants to create some form of conflict so that he can have some conflict resolution between that character and Yondu, because check it out, they're the same. People don't think that this person's rough and rough.
What they tried to do with Rocket and Yondu did not work for me. At the end, he's like, I won't leave without you. It's like, you can't like him that much just from the last
5 minutes of conversation about how
but
we're
they
both...
broke out of prison together.
Yeah, that part I will concede on that point and say that arc sucked.
And then you have Gamora, which Gamora is like one of the best characters in the original Guardians, and not because she's super funny or because she's super charming. She does have a couple of those moments, but because she is kind of she's the head, she's the person who, like, the realist of the group that just has a great idea of what to do and how to do it. And she even has some of those characteristics in this, where when they first get to his planet, she's like, something's a little off here.
She's the super competent one.
Yes, she is the most competent. She's the most competent fighter. She is the most competent of all of the Guardians. And her storyline in this is about, like, let's really, like, double down on this conflict with her sister in a way that, like, we talked, Peb, you talked about earlier, but, like, is not super interesting and is not as subtle or cool as it should be. Drax, to me, Drax and Mantis are the highlight of this movie. Drax's story is wonderful.
Drax is fucking by far my favorite part of these movies.
His story is wonderful. It's he went through his whole revenge thing in the first one, and his story in this one is really great about, like, finding a person to attach to and building a relationship with that person. But the way that relationship is built and the way that those two characters connect is, like, funny, and it's subtle. Their relationship
and it's
actually builds
unique
over time. Yes, I love the way how he's, like, always calling her ugly and things like that. I love all the nipple jokes. I love, like, the scene where he puts,
I gotta say, those nipple jokes are pretty good.
When he puts the vest on him, yeah, and then he's flying up in the air, and he's my nipples. Yeah. That scene is fucking great. Drax is a
Batista,
galactic treasure,
right? Yeah,
Dave Batista.
That guy's portrayal is so fucking spot on.
It is so good.
Because even like here's an example I can use when he's like, "You must be so embarrassed." Yeah. Like, just the emphasis he puts on the word embarrassed is so flat, and it fits it makes it 10 times.
Do me.
And like, he's able to pull off things that you wouldn't think he would. Like, he genuinely was sad for Quill that Quill didn't want to hear about his parents fucking. He was genuinely sad. He said, one of my favorite stories is the story of my conception.
Every winter solstice. Great detail. And just the part where he's like, it was Drax in these is like the one part, like, if I was to write this movie, like, those are the parts that would stay in, almost unchanged. Like, it's something, and there's something really special about having blatant dick jokes with the word penis in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
That it was like childish humor. It's not. It's juvenile humor, but it's something they normally avoid. And because it's coming from that character, he's like, "Did you have a penis?" Like he's like that shit was hilarious.
But even the serious moments when he and Mantis are sitting outside, and
he
he's
calls
talking
it
about.
ugly.
Yeah, and he's talking about his family or his wife and how much he loved him, and then Mantis touches him, and then the moment she touches him, a tear falls down her face, like the moment. So, we all know her power, and it's super interesting, and I cannot wait to see her in Infinity War. I cannot wait to see this character.
I didn't know she was going to be in Infinity War.
She's on the poster.
Guardians
Man, I know. I'm just giving you shit.
She immediately touches him and immediately starts crying, and you feel the connection between the two of them. You feel that it goes back to the thing, it's
when
subtle.
she touches him when he's laughing and she's like, I've never felt such humor. That shit killed me, man.
Anything involving Drax is 10 out of 10 good in this. And same thing with Mantis.
And Mantis was done in a subtle way, because I think that she is genuinely learning how to be a people.
For sure. She talks about her inability to have social interactions.
A person or a people?
Like a person. Like she's not. Okay. She's learning how to talk and how to feel and how to those are all things that she hadn't done. And they could have spent hours talking about that, or trying to explain that, but they just sort of played it out in this very natural way that totally worked for me. But here's one part that that bothered me. It really, and I know that this was the joke. I understand intellectually that this was the joke, but it bugged me every single time Drax would insult her looks, because she's fucking gorgeous.
We all know that she's gorgeous.
I know that that's the joke, but man,
that's why Gamora's about, you're not ugly, by the way.
Yeah, well, I know, but
I get what you're saying, especially you're such a good soul.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway,
you are a very kind person, Pep.
I guess what I'm saying is I ship Drax and her, and if they're going to end up together, he has got to stop calling her ugly.
They certainly are. When he's gagging, so I was just picturing us copulating physically.
That scene is so good. And then
let's not retouch every Drax line, but yes, top tier in this
top
film.
top tier. He's incredible in this movie. And then we get to Star-Lord. We get to start, I've touched on, I haven't touched on Groot. Let me touch on Groot real quick.
I got a hot take for you. Yeah. I don't like Baby Groot.
I don't either. He's not.
He feels like an Ewok. He's marketing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
It's everybody's what I really loved in Guardians of the Galaxy was in the credit scene where he's dancing around in his little potted plant.
That's my least favorite part.
But that's what I'm saying.
We're gonna get a whole movie.
Now let's turn his character into that. And even as far, we're not going to talk about the post credit scene too much, but what they decide to do with him in the post credit scene.
I got to disagree. I love that post-credit scene. That post-credit scene is brilliant.
We'll get there, though.
We'll get there. We'll talk about it.
The one things I thought they did do good about Baby Groot was when they were holding him at the end and stuff, and the way that he moved and the way that they held him made it feel like they were holding a kitten or something. The way that he that part worked as him being small.
Here's what didn't work: fucking Groot eating fucking candy and popcorn in the middle of a fucking space battle.
I thought that was funny.
No, that wasn't for me.
And he just had a bowl of M&Ms.
He got a bowl of M&Ms.
I don't know. I gotta disagree with you. I thought that part was great because it's just he doesn't get what's going on and he doesn't care. So
I love
he
Baby
does
Groot.
And that
I
sucks.
felt him being a baby added more to the family element of this movie, and that whole beginning scene, him dancing around while they're playing Mr. Blue Sky, complete homage to the first opening scene of the movie.
And the way the Rocket treats him like a baby, he's like, "No, what are you eating? Spit that out!" That sort of bit. There were parts of Baby Groot that worked for me, but overall, as a whole, I just want to get back to regular size Groot.
If you guys have seen the commercials,
get there as quick as possible, that'd be great.
If you guys have seen the trailers for the new Incredibles movie, they have a baby. So there's four of them, and then there's a baby in this one, and the baby is going to be doing superhero baby things, and that's what Baby Groot reminds me of. He reminds me of this idea of let's just have a silly baby doing baby things, and then everybody else having to react to a baby, where it's oh no, he's going to put his finger in a locket of whatever it's called.
So there was one.
Hold on real quick. What was that one movie with the three fathers taking care of the child?
Three Men and a Baby.
There you go.
What's that movie that's about three men and a baby?
It was Cool Runnings.
But yeah, it's that whole thing.
All
It's a little too tropey.
But one part of it did work for me, and that was where Taserface, fuck that guy.
When they're fucking him up.
When Taserface, when he comes up to Taserface and he goes, should we space the little Groot guy? And Taserface says, no, he's too cute to do anything bad to.
And then they
Too
pour beer
adorable.
on him.
Yeah, but my point is that that moment when they were aware that he was just a marketing gimmick and he was not even a real, that was funny to me because it was the movie making
whereas,
fun
like,
of itself.
Yeah, he just says, I am Groot. But, like, when I was going through the cast and I got to the fact that Vin Diesel plays this character, like, when we talked about the first one, it's like, why would they get Vin Diesel to do this? Oh, yeah, just so they can have a name. But I felt that 10 times more with this character, where it's like,
I thought that was funny that they still had him do it because it's such a who gives a shit.
Exactly, who gives a shit?
But that's why I think it's funny that he still even does
But I
it and
thought
still is
Vin
credited.
Diesel did an excellent job in the first one.
Yeah.
Every
There was a lot of
delivery of I
subtlety
Am
to it.
Groot had subtlety to it. In this one, there was no subtlety. It was just I am Groot and I'm cute and I'm angry.
All right, let's talk about Star-Lord. So Star-Lord, Peter Quill, his arc in Guardians of the Galaxy about, the whole movie is kind of focused on him. He's the main character. And the first one is about him finding his place, finding what he's about. It's about him becoming a member of something and someone, a group of people that he can love. And it does a great job of like kind of establishing who he is and what matters to him.
Yes.
This just specifically focuses on the whole father storyline for him, but even in like before his father showed up, they're talking about him having a father, so they really want to push home the daddy issues. Don't get me wrong, I know we've talked about personal things associated with daddy issues. I'm fine with the daddy issues storyline being in a movie. It
pushed out the previous story about him that was interesting.
Yes, exactly. Even as far so whenever he goes to the planet and he realizes how much he loves his dad and that he can make Pac-Man and Skeletor things with his mind if he wants to, then we have this scene that I know that the movie is putting it in there as a moment to be like, hey, this trope that everybody that's in every daddy movie, we're going to put it in here too, where we play catch. Mm-hmm. And we're going to put this music behind it that makes it seem like it's, from a sports movie where they're
as far as I can tell, that only
moment.
Happens in movies.
Yes,
that's my only experience with it.
And that's the purpose of this
Playing
scene.
catch?
Is it's supposed to
just the catch with that music and that certain. There's a light that they put on it, and it's just
it's a trope, and it's supposed to be played out like a trope, but it's played too seriously.
Yeah,
it's played like a lot harder than it should be. Again, we've said, Peb and I have said this word 1,000 times. It just doesn't have any subtlety to it. It doesn't treat it. It doesn't treat it like a joke. It doesn't treat it. Look at DKP.
I was gonna say, how about this? How about you say it's too obvious?
It's okay.
Match it up and switch it up a little bit.
No,
I agree.
But it doesn't have charm. That scene doesn't have the charm that a Guardians of the Galaxy tropey scene should have in it.
So I know that I often do this in this show, but if I were to fix this, the way that I would fix it is that the conflict should have been about him deciding between his families, right? Him deciding Yondu is the real dad to me, and that I need to, and that my real family is this family with Gamora and Drax and the annoying little fox guy, and that's what the story should have been. But that wasn't what the story was. The story was just my dad is evil and now I've got to try and kill him via Pac-Man. And I think that it would have been more interesting if Peter Quill had to make a decision, or he had to have some sort of conflict, or he had to have some sort of something that would talk about that first movie, where he had to choose. Do I want to stay in this family? Is this something I want to commit to? Or do I want to start a new family where I go and take over the world or take over the galaxy and make it all blue and undulating?
One more thing I want to mention is we've talked about Zemo getting lucky or whatever. As far as convenience sake goes, how every single Guardian of the Galaxy is, they're all in separate areas, but they all find out at the exact same moment that he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the exact same moment that Drax and Yondu, like all of those scenes are back to back to back of Yondu and Rocket being like, oh, we have to do this. He's a bad guy. Let's go right now. And then Nebula and Gamora finding the thing of bodies at the exact same moment that Peter's having a conversation with him and realizes he's a bad guy. Like the convenience of all of the characters in the movie finding out and saying, we got to fix this right this second is like the most convenient, perfectly lined up thing that's ever existed, and it was too obvious.
Well, no, that was just too convenient.
It was too convenient.
There you go.
It was.
Except, I don't know. None of that shit bothered me this time around. Or I didn't even like notice that. I didn't even put that together. Like, oh, that was too. Well, I guess it is pretty convenient. They all figured out. Nope. Well, I guess just lucky me. I had a good time watching this movie.
So, I want to. This is just me saying because we're kind of there in the plot. So, I really, really hate the falling through space, fighting a dude, Marvel third act ender. I hate it. It's the way they ended Black Panther. It's the way they ended. We're all going to be in a giant field of CGI, and we're all going to like jump and punch at each other, and we're all falling through a space that nobody understands, and there's all these weird colors, and it's dark, and I don't relate to that. I don't. At no point in time have I had to battle my father at the center of a planet that my father was made of. And
we talked about that with Black Panther.
Yeah,
for a little bit as well, though.
So I just want to say that it happened here too, and I don't like it, and I hope Marvel quits doing that shit.
I have two more quick things, and then I promise I'll stop shitting all over a movie that half of us love.
I don't mind.
There's a part where Gamora, where they're all like inside the like caverns of Ego, and Gamora falls, and Peter goes no, and then just like moves on with what he's doing. But Nebula jumps down and saves him.
I know.
It's like that's uncharacteristic of the hero regarding the person he loves, and even though they have fallen 1,000 times and landed perfectly on their feet. And then the other part is Thor Ragnarok has this same issue. Specifically, I think the song is called Chains by Fleetwood Mac. Yes. That song is brilliantly used both times that it's used. But when it's used the second time, it loses part of that impact.
See, I forgot that it was even used the first time. So when I heard it towards the beginning of the movie, I was like, holy shit, I didn't know they used it twice. Because I thought that was a brilliant piece of, judging by the soundtrack and what they're trying to do with the soundtrack. Of course, like, you can get Fleetwood Mac. It's appropriate. And it's a great song.
It's a great song, when he's super, and it fits both scenes incredibly well.
But yeah, I'll agree. They should have just used it.
It lost its luster for me the second time it's used. And we'll talk about this when we get to the Thor Ragnarok thing as well, because Thor Ragnarok does the same thing, and it sucks because that song is so good and it fits that. But yeah,
that moment.
Yep.
See, I had the complete opposite reaction with that because that song is about a family structure. So it was perfect when he finally realized that his dad is not who he seems, and that song kicks back in and he realizes who his family is. Loved it. They did that a lot better than they did with Thor Ragnarok.
So I do want to say that the music in this one was not as good as the music in the first one.
I still thought it was great, but there was a lot of moments where it played listen to our intro music. Like it's the Avengers intro theme, so I think it's appropriate and it works for what we're doing. But there was a song, that's a lot of their generic, that whatever horn plays, the there was a little
like 5 trumpets.
There were a lot of moments where they used that sort of music, and it's like, don't let that shit creep into Guardians, all right? Keep that out. Save that for the rest of the Marvel movies like you do. Maybe not Thor Ragnarok. But yeah, I was like, come on, don't play the generic action music.
So I also, I had challenges like Brandy. All right. So isn't that the song about the sailor?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I felt like that was a good choice to make because it really is a song about the sort of the plot of this movie.
Yep. And if that was used twice, I didn't have a problem with that because it was specifically Like, he calls out that it's his mom's favorite song and all of these types of things. Like, it's handled a little.
It was part of something. It was part of a callback.
But then when Kurt Russell sang the whole fucking song to him again out loud as Kurt Russell or as Ego.
Hey, you shut the fuck up. That was beautiful and touched my heart and made my genitals engorge.
It
Shout
was
out to Pev's mom.
too on the money for me, and I was just like, come on, guys, be a little more subtle. Just the fact,
Be a little less obvious.
Let me realize the second viewing. Oh wow, Brandy really was a good choice for a song. Don't hit me over the head with, hey, we chose Brandy because look, I'm like the sailor and your mom is like Brandy. All right, so let me explain it to you again, Peter, because clearly there's someone in the audience who didn't get it. It was annoying to me.
I could see that. I don't think I can only. Sorry, go on, Ivan.
That's one of the songs that I hated that they played twice. I really did.
So exact opposite from Tommy. No, I once I've seen something that's so much worse, certain things don't seem as bad. The very first Justice League trailer did that for me, where nothing will ever seem as bad or too obvious.
Okay,
but come together, yeah, get it? Because they're assembling, they're coming together.
So bad about it. They're so.
Suicide Squad was by far the worst about it. They even brought back an Eminem song.
So I will concede the fact that this is way better than Suicide Squad.
It shows Harley Quinn, and it's like, you don't know me. Don't tell me what to do, and don't tell me what to say.
And then when they're all released, it's guess who's back? It's get it because they're back, guys. They're free.
I get it,
man. Oh, I fucking despise that movie. Anyways, we're not talking about Suicide Squad or any of that.
Stay tuned for our review of Suicide Squad, the musical.
I know exactly the type of frustration you're talking about, but
you didn't have it here.
It's kind of like once you've seen that shit,
you can only go up from here.
Nothing's ever that bad. Nothing ever annoys me. Like, I have a lot more tolerance.
In closing, for my opinion on this, the first 20 minutes of this movie and the last 15 minutes of this movie are masterpiece, magical, as good as the first Guardians of the Galaxy. The 6 hours between those two moments were awful.
In closing, I thought it was a fun movie. Once again, it changes the pace of most Marvel movies. It feels like if it wasn't a Marvel movie, if you didn't know it was, it would just be a fun, swashbuckling adventure with characters you really like. Like, it's accidentally a Marvel movie. And that's why I guess I like it so much, is that it feels different, and it has a singular vision and direction that it's going in with the writing and directing. And I really appreciate just the Guardians franchise for that.
I gotta say, if we're closing out our review portion, I feel like this movie made me care about these characters that much more. So going into Infinity War, if any of the Guardians ever get hurt, I'm probably gonna feel the most sympathy for them.
Nebula's fucked. Sorry, dog.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
In closing, I would have to say that when I started this movie, I got 15 minutes into it, and then I thought,
we get it. You hate the convertible. Fuck, man.
and then I thought, what I could be doing, which would be so cool, is I could be
masturbating.
I could be doing my laundry.
You almost said it.
Ironically, I actually did my laundry while I watched this movie.
And so I went and I did my laundry.
Watching this movie.
Maybe that's why you liked it as much. So that was my mistake. I did laundry instead of masturbating. Shout out to Peb's mom.
Okay, glad you did it, because I was like, well, there hasn't been a good spot for one of those. And then it was early when I was talking about my engorged genitals, and I was like, God damn it, that's not the right context. That sends the wrong message. Fuck. So thank you for getting one out there.
You got it.
One that fits.
So my conclusion is I had more fun doing laundry than I had watching this movie.
Well,
10 out of 10. Yep.
That sucks. I just feel
10.
bad that you guys went into the movie with that kind of feeling. That sucks. That sucks.
That's not the feeling I had when I went into the movie. That's the feeling I had when I came out of it.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I mean, after watching it and while watching it.
Dude, I wanted to like this movie. Like
Me
I
too.
said, after you and I had a
I was
conversation, and you
terrified I
told
was
me,
going to dislike this movie on second watch.
and you told me like watching it again, you actually really enjoyed it. I'm like, you know what? The way we're going into this, I'm excited. I think I'm going to like it this time. And when it started, I was like, I do like this. I do like this. I do like this. And then,
I just had fun throughout most of this movie.
and then it fell apart.
Pretty much almost every, even the dialogue that like the Taserface getting overplayed and shit. I was still just like, okay, this is still different enough to where I'm not. Once the scene's over, we get back to dialogue I find unique, funny, witty, and interesting.
So, why don't we score this movie?
Let's give it a score.
I think we should.
I think we should start with Idify.
I'm sorry, you guys are breaking up. What happened?
We were
Well,
going to
Idify
score the
score.
movie. What's your score?
What's yours?
Like it's really bad. You guys, I only hear like
Score
bits and
the
pieces.
movie. Score the movie.
On
8.5. This movie visually is shot better than the first one. There are just some amazing cinematography scenes. And to me, I would almost say if I had to give it like a Star Wars thing, this one I think, well, in my opinion, I think will be the Empire Strikes Back of the Guardians trilogy.
Huh, all right.
DKP, what did you think of this movie?
I'm gonna give it a 10. No, I'm kidding. I think I'm gonna give it a 8.7.
7. Major Tom.
6.8.
6.8.
Oh god, here we go. Here comes the ball buster.
2.8.
Jesus
Lowest
Christ.
score to date, baby.
James Gunn, please make better opening
I had
scenes.
no idea you fucking despised the movie that
I
much.
hated this movie. But here's the deal. So not only did I like it less than Iron Man 3, but I feel like it's important to point out that my highest scoring movie is Guardians 1.
Same.
And the fact that this gets such a low score is directly related to how
It breaks my heart,
how much I
but I have
loved
to
the
do
first
it.
one.
2.8. All right, fair enough.
Cool. So
There's no way to say this without sounding patronizing, but I just want you to know, genuinely, I don't mean it this way.
just
I'm
whatever you
disappointed
do, copy and
I'm
paste.
disappointed you guys had such a bad time watching this movie. Or I'm
same.
sad that you guys had a bad time watching this movie.
Do you remember last week or a couple weeks ago when you and I were talking about Winter Soldier, and I was talking about how much it broke my heart that you guys didn't like Winter Soldier?
Same
and you
thing,
were,
yeah.
and you made fun of me for that.
Well, that's why you had to phrase it that you mean it genuinely, not passive aggressively, or I don't know. Because like that phrase is impossible to say without sounding like you're being cynical and like, well, sorry, you thought it was wrong. You're objectively wrong, but sorry you feel that way. So sorry if I gave you shit about it. That's why I knew beforehand how it was going to sound if I didn't.
Somebody play
Make sure
Fleetwood
to point
Mac.
that out.
No, like I said,
I can
well,
hear the
if you
chain.
don't love me now. I had a really good time reviewing this movie. It's kind of fun being on
this is fun.
on this side of it. Of not liking something whenever.
In all
everyone likes it.
seriousness, I think that that's one of the reasons I like doing this podcast is that we all have profoundly different experiences from the movies, and that I think makes it much more interesting.
This week's episode of Preparation
Podcast is a
Avenger.
coming of age podcast. You see,
This week's Preparation Avenger is brought to you by Sony Walkman, Zune / Microsoft, and Dairy Queen.
Oh my God!
that's
Yeah,
about it.
that Dairy Queen, that fucking.
We got two different Dairy
Yeah,
Queens.
That
an
was
old
one of the
and a new
most
one.
like least offensive parts of like product placement.
Yeah,
Because like back in those days, you take it down to the Dairy Queen.
no
and you
shit.
get
Yeah,
down.
it was right out of the 70s. It was
I love
perfect.
that he's like, where do I plant a part of me on this planet? Oh, there's a Dairy Queen.
I'll go get a
behind
dilly
that.
bar and then I'll go jack off in the woods.
Yeah. What is this banana split
Same.
they're advertising?
DKP says that's what I do.
You don't think I've never jerked off in the woods? Of course I have.
There isn't a place on earth that he hasn't
I've jerked to you
off.
everywhere, man.
Shout out to
I've
Pep's mom.
jerked to you everywhere, man.
It's time to move on to Secrets of the Marvel
Universe.
Universe.
See, I beat you to it that time.
You're so charming and clever.
I know. I'm quick on the draw.
Number one, Yondu meets up with some old friends in this movie. That includes Takar, also known as Starhawk in the comics, Charlie 27, played by Ving Rhames, Martin X, played by Michael Rosenbaum. If you guys don't know who Michael Rosenbaum is, he played Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Oh,
Like one of the best parts
yeah,
of that show.
that was awesome.
Aletta, played by Michelle Yeoh. She's the Asian lady. She only has a couple of scenes. Mainframe.
I like Michelle Yeoh, though.
Mainframe, who's like that little head that we see in the post credits, voiced by Miley Cyrus. And
why?
This is how it was said on the internet: a red fish guy. I'm sure that's an actual character. I don't think that that's their name. I just couldn't find what their name is. In the comics, these characters were all previously a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
I want to point out, you talked about Stallone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of movies he's in today where that man just looks like shit.
He looked pretty good in this
his
one.
lips about to like fall off of his face finally. Yeah. It's like hanging on by a thread. He looked like an action figure in this movie. Rugged, chiseled jawline. He had his hair on point, and he had the suit on.
Yeah.
And his suit had these dorky little lit up.
I thought those were fucking great, man.
Well, that's where I was going to go.
His character has those on his head.
Those
in
could
the
have been
comics.
the stupidest looking things, but he just made it work. And I was like, yeah, you go, Stallone.
Yeah.
Like if I wore those, I would look stupid.
Number 2.
Hey, don't say that.
Taserface is in the comics. And he's one of the very first foes that the Guardians fight. He's from the 31st century, and he mastered technology made out of from an Iron Man suit. There was an Iron Man suit that ended up in the future somehow. Well, I don't know much about the comics, but it makes sense that at some point Iron Man time travels.
This particular story.
But yeah,
it's just there.
He becomes a super badass because he uses technology based on Iron Man's suit. Number 3. The singer of mindless self-indulgence is in this movie.
You know, I know that because Angry Tomato, old Chet Bicep, drove me home last night, and I was like, we're doing Guardians tomorrow, and he's like, oh, you know the singer of MSI's in that? He's a big fan of that band.
Comedian Steve Agee is in the film. He's one of the Ravagers who mutiny against Yondu. Additionally, Rob Zombie is credited as playing an unseen Ravager.
Why would, if he's not
Unseen.
even in the fucking movie, why
maybe
would you credit him?
it's like because Rob Zombie was in the first one as well. He was the voice of one of the Ravagers, so maybe it's the same sort of thing in this one.
The thing about Rob Zombie is he wouldn't even have to dress up. He just kind of looks like a
he looks like
Ravager.
Taserface already.
Yeah.
He's a fucking wook.
I guess so.
Well, he's a white dude with like dreadlocks, and it's like, okay, get out of here.
Number 4.
Is that what a wook is?
Yes,
It's that type
Sorta.
of person.
It is it's a name that people call people who white dudes who have dreadlocks and they smell like patchouli and don't
he's like
look
the heavy
they've
metal successful variant of the wook, but still a wook.
Number 4.
Okay.
In the space jump scene where Rocket, Yondu, and Kraglin make their way to Ecosystem, you can see 2 creatures fighting on a rocky planet. Those are the Cronin. We've seen the Cronin in Thor: The Dark World, and we will see them again in Thor: Ragnarok.
Moving on.
Yep.
Number
Number
5. To say
5.
about the Cronin. Want to talk about Man Thing for a little bit, boys?
Number 5. Howard the Duck pops back up, and he's
Twice.
still voiced by Seth Green. Number 6. The Watchers, a race of creatures who are vital and central in the Marvel mythos. They're observers of all that goes on in the universe, sworn never to interfere with what they see. However, that kind of rule is just made to be broken. As such, the Watcher of Earth, Uatu, has regularly gotten involved in the various super happenings of Earth. Here, we don't see them much of anything other than listen to astronaut Stan Lee, and they kind of get bored and walk off. His first appearance, he first appeared as the co-creation of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in a story where he warned Earth of the coming of the cosmic destroyer Galactica.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Galactus.
I was going to say,
No,
Yeah,
sorry,
no.
watched too much Battlestar Galactica last week. Number 7. It's mentioned that Peter Quill's dad, the godlike being Ego, the living planet, is a Celestial. In the comics, the Celestials are a race of godlike beings who were created by Jack Kirby. We already heard mention of a Celestial in the previous Guardians films. The City of Nowhere was situated in the dead skull of one of them. Number 8. The 2 planets we are given the names of are Behurt and Contraxia, and they're most definitely yanked from comic panels. Behurt is a very
Bearheart?
obscure... Bearheart?
that's how they phrase it in the movie.
Sure. A contraction. Wait, where is that? It's very obscure, and it only appeared in 2 issues of Incredible Hulk in 1969. Furthermore, it's not mentioned by name in the 2-part story.
I wonder if they have a guy when they're writing something. Okay, we need him to be
I
on
think
a
so.
planet. Could you go pick one out for us that people will go ooh, or like 2 people in the world will be like, oh my god, I don't.
Contraxia, on the other hand, is notable because an Avenger named Jack of Hearts is half Contraxian. The planet first appeared in Jack of Hearts #2, which was in 1984. And like the film, it is a cold, snowy planet due to a dying sun. That's the one where we first meet Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
It's like
It's the brothel.
the brothel, yes.
Where Michael Rooker's fucking a bunch of real dolls.
Yep.
That's
Also,
pretty
like
rad.
we mentioned in the previous, that I mentioned previously, we get a glimpse of Vandar and what seems to be the Kree homeworld Hala toward the end of the film. Number 9, Peter Quill whispering eternity when he has those like spacey eyes.
That's straight out of Marvel.
Straight out of the comics, yep. While ego manipulating him cannot be a coincidence. Since James Gunn packs so much into his films, it's not hard to believe that the Marvel character Eternity will come into play somewhere down the line, especially considering Eternity's tendency to show up whenever the Infinity Stones are collected.
Swamp or Man Thing.
Hell yeah, we're talking Man Thing? Let's do it.
Man Thing had several references to Eternity, and Eternity shows up several times. So that's where I ran into him first.
Number 10, good old Grandpa Quill. So he's the one who goes to talk to Peter at the very beginning of the first movie, and he's like, hey, you need to go see your mom or whatever. He's in this movie. He's almost swallowed up by Ego's amorphous blob on
Oh my
Earth
God,
as he
was he
drives away
really?
from it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And he's in like older makeup too.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's the scene I'm actually looking forward to in Infinity War is when he sees Peter.
Also-
I'm sure they'll probably have something like that in there.
Would he
He's
even
also
recognize
in
say
the end
anything.
credits.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna put in the scene where he probably wouldn't recognize him, but he's gonna see his grandfather or something. Or there's gonna be some sort of whatever. Fucking let's just move on.
Also, during that
I
blob
like that
scene,
actor.
James Gunn's parents are in the movie. They're standing really close to it, and they're both like filming it with their phones, and then it swallows them up.
Yay.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. It's like, come on, Mom and Dad, come down to the set. I'll put you in the movie.
So his brother, his mom, and his dad were all in this movie?
Yeah, that's what happens when you're writer director.
If I ever had a Ken in a movie, I think I'd kill her. I love my mom just fine, but like,
Shout out to Pep's mom.
She'd be one of those. She'd be one of those people that'd be sucked up by the blob too.
And number 11, the final one. During the end credits, there's when the credits are playing, there's a whole bunch of different characters and things that we see. The only one that I thought was interesting worth shouting out was Jeff Goldblum dancing during the credits.
Yeah.
Because he, of course, is in Thor Ragnarok.
Somebody
The
talked.
Grandmaster.
A couple of people talked in the credits, like the little
David Hasselhoff has
David
a line.
Hasselhoff has a line, and a couple other things.
I skipped through it just to get to the scenes. So I don't remember that.
Time to move on to everybody's favorite character, our friend Stanley.
Stanley.
DKP, do you remember the Stan Lee cameo?
I do. This might be my favorite Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's him talking to the Watchers, right?
yeah.
He's like, yeah, one time they had me as a FedEx driver, and I don't know, and then there was another time, and then at the end, they start walking off, basically, and that's about it.
I like that they add context to Stanley popping up in movies.
Yeah, there's a reason that he's been in every movie.
But yeah, it's basically like, somehow he's a spaceman, and he's like, he's this cosmic entity that keeps floating into different existences.
So I like it because Stanley sort of is a cosmic entity within the Marvel universe, and so it plants him squarely where he should be in the universe. On the other hand, I'm not sure that this scene worked for me because it was a part of a scene that just annoyed me. So the scene where they go through too many jumps because
Yeah, and
Rocket
they all have cartoon character faces.
they all have cartoon. That's like the stupidest thing. If they had just brought him in at the end, I would have been like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" But I'm so mad at them for doing the fucking Roger Rabbit bullshit that I was just annoyed by.
I thought that
Stanley.
scene was fucking out of place, but that's why I thought it was funny.
Yeah?
It was something I never would have expected to see. So I thought it was humorous.
It worked for you.
Yep.
I mean, can we all agree that Stan Lee is a watcher now?
At least he may not be a watcher, but he at least has watcher powers.
He's Watcher adjacent.
Because he bores the watchers to death with his stories.
That is
And
his
their whole
fault.
job is watching.
But I personally like the theory that he is a watcher, just from the standpoint that he had watched these properties grown and develop. So I thought it was a nice
It's a
little
nice
nod.
piece of headcanon.
Did you guys
I'll
see
give
that James Gunn came out and apologized for the scene with him as a watcher?
No.
Specifically because This movie takes place in 2014.
Right.
So we see the opening of the movie, the Dairy Queen thing, and it says 1980.
Right.
And then we go to when they're stealing batteries, and it's the pop-up says 34 years later.
Right.
So it's 2014. It's supposed to take place like 2 or 3 months after the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
And then we see Stan Lee have a conversation about being a FedEx man from Captain America Civil War,
He
which doesn't take
apologized
place
for
until
that?
later. He apologizes because he messed up the timeline.
Oh, that's hilarious.
There's
I don't
inconsistency
think so.
in the timeline.
It's saying that he's been through many existences, so he doesn't
yeah.
mean. I don't think he needed to actually come out and apologize.
I think
Then
that's
the
problem, is he
director of
didn't need to come out
Spider-Man
and
needs to
apologize.
get on his knees and fucking start crying an apology.
Yeah, because Spider-Man Homecoming takes place 8 years after the events of the Avengers, which would be 2020.
And if you want to find out about Spider-Man Homecoming, just tune in next week for
Yay.
our review on Preparation Avengers.
All right, it's time for my favorite segment. DKP, maybe this is your favorite segment too. Peb, is this your favorite segment? The post-credits get out your fucking checkbook moment. Get out your fucking checkbook! Number one. Okay, so there are a lot of post-credit scenes in this
There
movie.
are a
An
lot.
absurd amount. So I may have missed one or two. I'm not 100% sure. So if I missed one and there's one that you recall, let me know. Number one, Sylvester Stallone has a speech to his team. He's got all the different members, a bunch of different members of the Ravagers. And he looks at him and he's talking about how we need to get back out there. And he says, what say we steal some shit? And that's it for that in the credit scene.
And now we'll have Expendables 5
Right?
I'd watch that.
in space.
Number two, Aisha is sitting down all disheveled, and the lady comes up and is like, hey, the High Council is summoning you to answer for wasting so many resources. And then she looks over, and there's this big, it's not a casket, what's it called? The thing that you
Sarcophagus?
keep... That's exactly the word I was thinking of. Sarcophagus. And she goes, I think I shall call him Adam. And everybody's like, oh my God, Adam Warlock, I'm so excited.
You are now calling me Betty. Yep.
So yeah, Adam Warlock.
Do you know who's playing him, by the way?
Nope.
I got-
He'll be in 3 though.
I got no
Gunn has
strong
confirmed he'll
feelings
be in
on
3.
Well, I'm still holding out that it's going to be Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Because he was almost Star-Lord, and he would make a good Adam Warlock, I think. And
I don't know if he's
there's a
perfect
long
enough.
arc in Always Sunny where people refer to him as the Golden God.
It's
So it's
time to
almost
bring
perfect.
Terrence Howard back. Adam Warlock.
He's got too I'm sorry to use this word again. Subtle of a dick
Too less obvious of a dick.
to be
Because when Drax asks him, do you have a dick? He'd have to say, well...
divine dick.
Our number 3 in credit scene, Star-Lord enters Groot's room and tells him, dude, you got to clean up your room. And then he gets into it with Groot about being boring. And he's
This
like, I'm
is-
not boring.
My absolute favorite
And then he says, now I know
scene
how Yondu felt.
in the movie because it connects the
Had to
Yondu
kick it when it's
story.
down, didn't you?
It connects the Yondu story to Peter Quill. Groot is finally interesting again. I
don't want teenage Groot, by the way.
teenagers who behave in
Teenage
exactly
angsty Groot,
that
no
way.
thank you.
Oh my God, that is so the opposite of baby Groot. That is a real Groot with and do you want a teenage angsty tree creature who's strong enough to pick up
No, I just
four
want
guys?
regular ass.
I want the Groot
back.
from the first one.
Tommy.
I like that guy.
up top on that one, baby.
I like that guy.
Well,
I don't want
we
to see
ain't getting-
teenage Groot. What do you mean we're not getting him? Are you about to spoil things?
No, I'm just saying.
You
I
piece of shit.
I hope we get more teenage Groot. I loved him, and I think he will be interesting. And I like the idea of Peter Quill being a dad.
Although this is just one of those weird things that we saw when the credits were rolling through, David Hasselhoff says, during times of hardship, remember, we are Groot.
He does.
David Hasselhoff says that.
Yeah, in
That's
the credits.
excellent.
And then the fourth and final in the credit scene, again, unless I missed one, Stan Lee is hanging out with the Watchers and he says, hey, fellas, where you going? You're supposed to be my lift home. How do I get out of here? Oh, gee, I've got so many more stories to tell.
I haven't even told you about the time that I got robbed of all of my money.
That time that I took a drink of a drink and passed out and then became the Incredible Hulk.
I haven't even told you about that time I was running a strip club.
I haven't told you about the time I was in a bunch of terrible X-Men movies in the early 2000s.
There was this movie called Wolverine Origins, and that's when they walk away. They're like, no, sir.
He says, "Let me tell you about Deadpool."
Hold
like,
on.
Fuck you, man.
And that's it for our post-credit scenes. No, I'm a monster. No getting your rocks off this week.
No, we're out of I'm a Monster, right?
We're out of I'm a Monster, and we are
Fresh out.
And we're out of the Infinity Stone stuff. We'll be talking about it in the episode right before we do Infinity War. But
Coming up next week, we're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming, and I can give you a short summary. Spider-Man does all the stuff through all the movies.
he does. I think Idify put it really well when he said the John Hughes Spider-Man film.
The John Hughes Spider-Man film.
Anybody have anything else that they want to say before I read the outro?
I think I'm all good.
I'm good.
I'm
Been
good.
a pleasure, boys.
Yeah. That's it for this week's Preparation Avengers. Join us next week where we'll be discussing Spider-Man. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell so you can be notified when they go live. Also, follow us on Twitter. I don't really know why because we don't really use it that much, but just follow us anyway. Maybe we'll start using it again and you'll be like, oh man, look at all this great Twitter content.
Look at this great content.
Look at this Twitter content. I'll say this, it does notify you in Twitter. Like it automatically posts whenever we post a new YouTube video. So there's that.
You know
and
what?
then
I do
sorry,
have
go
one
ahead.
thing. I
Yeah.
think what we all should take away from this movie is you never tell your child you killed his mom.
That's fair.
But you should still kill
Anybody
their
have
mom.
more that they want to add before we close it out again?
Nope.
That's it for this week's. I'm just kidding. Also follow us on Twitch. We play video games on them sometimes. Our panel one last time. Danny,
Yes, sir.
Pebbiff,
That's me.
Alex/Sidify,
Hey now.
and I'm Thomas. Don't forget, Baskin Robbins always finds out.